Yes, hello everyone and welcome to all our West Australian football fans to this special state game edition of Around the WAFL. Yes, that's right, we're building up to a huge encounter this Sunday afternoon between Western Australia and South Australia at Optus Stadium right here in Perth. The Hayden Bunton Cup is on the line. We're going to preview the big game and we're going to be joined by both state coaches, Cam Shepherd of Western Australia and Jade Rawlings of South Australia, to provide their perspectives on the big game. We'll also have a look at some of the key players for both sides and a brief history about this passionate and parochial rivalry between the Sandgropers and the Crow Eaters. Paul Persick is alongside Ethan Roth. Rothy, are you feeling it, mate? Big excitement amongst this state and, of course, over at the State of the Czech side for this Sunday's game.
Yeah, sure am, Paul. I mean, outside the grand finals, I think this is probably the biggest week on the WAFL calendar, to be honest. You know, there's no much bigger occasion than pulling the state Guernsey and beating those Crow Eaters.
No doubt about it, and the same can be said for South Australia as well. We are glad to be joined by listeners over in South Australia as well, getting themselves hyped up for what's going to be a massive game. Of course, they've had the Hayden Bunton Cup since 2019, and they've maintained a 5-year winning streak. Can they do it again on Sunday, or will West Australia take the cup back home? It is going to be an exciting encounter. Of course, it is a massive game, but here's how you can win big at the WAFL in 2024.
Punt from 50, win. Little too into the game, win. Too cocky, almost a win. Risking it all for the glory, win. It's win-win at the WAFL. Great footy, food and entertainment. Find out more at waffle.com.au.
All right, let's get right into it, Ethan. Of course, the state game this Sunday, and we're going to have a look later on at the WA and South Australia key players. But first off, we're going to have a look at WA from the coach's perspective. And for the third straight season, it is Cam Shepherd that's going to be taking on the role of state coach for Western Australia ahead of this Sunday afternoon's big encounter over at Optus Stadium. And he's good enough to join us here today on Around the WAFL. Cam, welcome along and congratulations on another great opportunity to coach Western Australia.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. I really look forward to it. Coaching the state is a great honour.
Certainly is, and it's one that's well-deserved and a great opportunity for you to bring the Hayden Bunton Cup back home to Western Australia. Let's talk about, of course, this squad, and it is stacked. Plenty of depth and a lot of form being recognised as well. I mean, a lot of these WAFL players have been in terrific form. They're looking match fit, and obviously they've got great character to add to the squad as well. Very important in a game like this.
Yeah, look, it's always difficult picking a squad that's not only in form, but we reward past performance in state games, and obviously we've got a cohort also coming back from the AFLs. But so we're in pretty good shape. No doubt South Australia are as well. So we're looking forward to a pretty keen contest on the weekend.
Straight away, looking at the squad, 3 rucks jump off the page. Bryn Teakle, Scott Jones, Ollie Eastland. Must be a luxury to pick 3, probably into 2 for the final game.
Yeah, they're 3 quality ruckmen and really good people, and we're blessed with that. It's now a matter of, we'll probably pick 2 to play, and who they are will be determined later in the week. But, Scotty's come off a couple of weeks where he hasn't played with injury, so we'll assess him tonight.
I understand, of course, you'll have another training session on Thursday at Lathlane. Is that correct?
That's right. We've got training tonight in Ernest Johnson Oval at South Perth, and then Thursday evening we'll trim the squad on Wednesday to about 25, and then Thursday we'll train at Lathlane, and then Saturday morning before we play, obviously, on Sunday. That's
going to be a big week, of course, for you and the West Australian squad. There's one player in particular that is going to be of keen interest. Nick Rokar starting to really find his feet at WAFL level at Swan Districts, and could have the opportunity of playing against his old state.
Yeah, look, that's right. He's had 4 years at Norwood and won a couple of best and fairest there, and as well as running second in the Margaree twice and playing state footy for South Australia. So he's a great addition to the squad, a really good fellow, and on top of that, he's in great form for Swan District. So, our midfield talent is long, and he's one of those pressing for a game.
And obviously South Australia have had the wood on you guys in recent years, albeit by small margins. How much emphasis is put not only on the win, but for some of these guys pulling on the state jumper, playing Optus Stadium, there's probably no bigger achievement outside of their state duties.
Yeah, look, that's one thing that we reflect on after our footy careers are over. Many players that, what are highlights? And highlights clearly are playing in a grand final and then with being a premiership player. But representing your state is the highest pinnacle for those who don't get to play in or win premiership. So it's something that I know is treasured by many players, and again, we're hopeful that pride will get us over the line. South Australia are the same. We're both states that take these games very seriously.
No doubt about it. There's a lot of pride of place in these games over here in Western Australia and in South Australia. Very passionate and parochial rivalry. Now, I want to draw your attention to an interesting point here. People have different views on this. I'm just wanting to get yours. Obviously, South Australia played a prior game against Victoria as part of the gather round. Would you consider, if there was a possibility that WA played two games, down the track in some year, one against South Australia, one against Victoria? A lot of people have different views about it. What's yours?
Look, it's something that we haven't considered. For the last 6 or 7 years, WA and South Australia are the two states that have embraced the state rivalry and the competition. Victoria joined in again this year and played South Australia a month ago. I'd welcome any game that we can to play against Victoria or Tasmania or wherever it may be, as well as South Australia. But at the moment, we're just wrapped that we get a game a year to represent our state.
And on the big stage as well, Optus Stadium, obviously the best stadium in the land. There's no doubt about that. Great surface and, of course, the tremendous facilities over there. It's going to suit the players wonderfully, and the dimensions there as well could really suit their game plan.
Yeah, look, I think it suits anyone who loves their footy. They just players want to play on a ground that is well recognised. For mine, pulling on the jumper, the black and gold is more important than where you play, but certainly the venue adds that little bit of theatre.
And last one before we let you go, Bailey Rogers back in the fold state-wise this season. I know the midfield is one area of the game. There's still the other facets, but can he, potentially squeeze into that final team?
Yeah, look, I mean, I don't have to name all the names that are pressing for selection in that area, but there's a wide range of players. We've just got to make sure we get the mix right that will allow us to get plenty of opportunity for our forwards and then, once it's in the forward half, make sure that we defend, on counter-attack. So, look, you could pick one of 9 or 10 midfielders and feel very comfortable.
It's a strong squad, and of course we'll find out later in the week who is going to make the final team to represent the mighty Swan, the Black Swan, at Optus Stadium for West Australia at Optus Stadium on Sunday afternoon. Cam, we really appreciate your time on Around the Waffle today. Go get them for West Australia in an effort to bring the Hayden Bunton Cup back home to the best state in the land, Western Australia. All the very best.
Thanks a lot, and thanks for really promoting our game.
It's a great game, and we look forward to it on Sunday. Cam Shepherd, good enough to join us here on Around the Waffle ahead of the big state game, where we're going to hear from Jade Rawlings, the South Australian coach, a little bit later on in the show. So it'll be very interesting to see, what perspectives both coaches have, not just the one.
Yeah, an insight into the squad and how they're preparing as well. So really diving deep.
No doubt about it. It's going to be a huge game on Sunday afternoon. It's going to be a huge one. West Australia and South Australia on Sunday afternoon. Huge game on Sunday afternoon. Make sure you head down to Optus Stadium, or you can check that game out live on the AFL app for our West Australian viewers and South Australian viewers, or for our South Australian viewers, you can check it on Sandful Now as well for our viewers in South Australia and our listeners over at the State of the Check side as well. This is a tremendous rivalry. It stretches back for a century and a half. West Australia and South Australia, parochial, passionate, and plenty of pride at place for this game.
There is, yeah, so much history on the line. The Hayden Bunton Cup goes back a long, long time. So, yes, obviously South Australia had the wood in recent years. WA haven't won since 2019. But, plenty of amazing state players for both sides, and currently and in the past.
Absolutely. I mean, when you look back to, some great eras, the state of origin era, back in the 80s and 90s, I mean, when you look at great players for West Australia, first of all, the likes of Stephen Michael, Nicky Winmar, when you think about those guys, they are some of the best WA players that have gone around. But obviously in more recent times, Aaron Black, Bailey Rogers, Ollie Eastland, of course, Hammer Brayshaw, Lee Kitchen, household name, no pun intended, great player. Ben Sokol played a good role up forward in 2022. But when you look at those players from WA, you think, wow, a decorated history in state football. The same can be said for South Australia as well. When you look at these stars, Craig Bradley, Stephen Kernahan, Mark Rashudo, you name them, absolutely incredible. And the coaches as well from both sides. Mickey Malthouse for WA, Ronnie Alexander, John Todd. And when you look at South Australia, John Cahill and Graham Corns, those are the two that really cemented into the modern era what pride of place and passion is for state football in South Australia. And look at those two figures from the state of the Czech side. Those are the guys that really cemented it.
Corns and Cahill, very two famous names in South Australia.
No doubt about it.
Yeah, proud footy heartland there in South Australia. Stretches back to the late 70s. I reckon that's when it really started to
concept,
sort of, really dominate. But yeah, they've always been a side of pace, I feel, as well. South Australia, a lot of speedy players.
Yeah,
but,
plenty of good running players across midfield in particular. And WA, that they've got that same craftsmanship in midfield, but a little bit more aggressive as well. They like to amp up the aggression taking on South Australia, and South Australia love to do the same.
They do, yeah. There's so much on the line. Bragging rights. It can be a long year if you don't get up in this game.
Yeah.
So, a whole year to rectify yourself and think about it.
No doubt about it. A whole year to reflect, of course, if you lose, but a whole year to celebrate if you win. And that's all part of what makes this game in particular absolutely exciting. And for our viewers in West Australia and South Australia, it is certainly one of an enjoyable occasion as well. Because, like you said, beside grand finals, this is obviously a big day, for both states as well. Because, not only pride and reputation is on the line, but for those players that, may never get to play in a premiership, pulling on the state jumper is the next best thing.
Yeah, what an opportunity, I think, to showcase themselves at Optus Stadium, state-of-the-art facility as well. It is the highest level outside of the AFL, and, it should be kept alive in coming years. That's not even a question, Hopefully the Vics can go back after they sort of spat the dummy in 2017 after we belted them. But
it was good to see them back early this year.
Against the Sandful earlier as part of Gather Round. So, yes, it's certainly exciting.
No doubt about it. An exciting time in football. Once again, Optus Stadium is the place. Sunday afternoon is the day, 12:45 p.m. live, free and in full on the AFL app for our West Australian viewers and over in South Australia. But of course, South Australia can access us on Sandful now as well as an alternative. What a game it's going to be this Sunday afternoon. Now let's take a look at some of the key members of the state squad. Of course, it'll be found out in due course to who makes the final team. We're going to start it off with Western Australia first. And talking about a lot of depth in their side, a lot of depth, aggression, and also recognised on form as well. I reckon on the basis of form, fitness, and character, that's going to be something that's so important for the selectors of the final team. Of course, WA's final team will be announced in the next few days. And when you're looking at some of the players that really has taken everyone by surprise, you have the likes of maybe Jed Hagan. He's had a great season in midfield, averaging over 20 disposals, plays a good brand of football. Chad Pearson down back as well. He's been one of the real pillars for South Fremantle. And speaking of young players in the state squad looking to make a name for themselves, he blossomed early in the season. Jasper Scaife of West Perth. He's really taken everybody by surprise with his good marking and kicking up forward. Had a few lean games over the last few weeks, but I don't think it should be a detriment to when the final team is selected.
Yeah, and I think that's more of a reflection of West Perth as a whole. They've obviously been struggling a little bit in the WAFL competition of late. But 12 guys in the squad have been on AFL lists, so it's a really strong side, full of experience. Not to mention, Sandover medalist, Bernie Naylor medalist outside of that as well.
Premiership players as well. No, you're absolutely right. And of course, the same can be said for East Fremantle as well. You're having a look at their numbers in that state team. 6 players in the state squad for East Fremantle. I mean, Cam Erdley and Matty Jupp, the two pillars down back. Fraser Turner, another former South Australian, along with Nick Rokar, of course, playing against their old states potentially for the first time.
And Mitch Croden, another one in the squad who's a Sandful at heart, so I'm sure he's an adopted West Australian now.
Yeah.
I'm sure he will be before he pulls on the jumper. But it's positive that all 10, from a WAFL point of view, 10 teams feature in the squad. Every single, even the West Coast Eagles have Ray Rusco in there as well.
And that's really good to see. I mean, it's a good presence. I mean, West Australia, have got that a little bit more down pat than the South Australians, because the South Australians only have 8 teams featured in the state squad. Adelaide and Port Adelaide, the only teams not to feature. Of course, both starting pretty poorly in the Sandful competition. South Fremantle only having 3 players in that state squad. I don't think that really reflects on how hot they've started in 2024. I think there's a couple of those that are missing out. But of course, recently there was the late addition to the state squad of Isaiah Winder as well. I reckon he should be the first to be picked in that final team. When you look at his last month in particular, the run and carry, the leg speed he's got in midfield, if he's not in the final team, I'm going to be baffled.
Well, if recent form's at the top of priority, he'll be right there.
Exactly.
Hayden Schloy, could he have been added? I know people say, he's had his time, he's not necessarily
I don't
pushing
think
for
he's had his time.
AFL for selection, but hopefully, the best team available to win we've picked, but Schloy, I think he should be in there, but I understand, there's always players who are going to miss out.
Absolutely. It's always a tough decision for selectors, and particularly the coach, Cam Shepherd, for players that possibly have to miss out. It's obviously as heartbreaking maybe as coaches on grand final eve to say to players, look, you're not good enough, unfortunately, to be in the team, but hopefully you will in the future. You've also got, of course, a couple of good players from Subiaco. Greg Clark, the Lions captain, terrific form he's been on this season. And the forward tandem of Jack Mayo and Ben Sokol, they, in the games where Subiaco have been in touch, they've been very reliable up forward, just haven't been able to get the results at club level. But, if they play in tandem on Sunday, they could be a huge, huge force for West Australia and a problem for South Australia's backline.
Really pleased to see Jack Mayo get an opportunity in this game. He's had injury troubles, but clearly he's up to state level. And I'd be pretty surprised if he doesn't make the final team.
I reckon as well, one player that could have more eyes than just the crowd over at Optus Stadium and also the viewers at home in Western Australia and South Australia, Jacob Blight. I reckon he could be having AFL recruiters on his eyes as well, because he has been rumoured to be the first pick in the mid-season draft from Pure Thunder.
Yeah, there are rumours. Obviously, North Melbourne hold that, and even Richmond are desperate for key defenders. So I reckon he's right in the frame of mind. But there's the stars left, right, and centre. I'll probably rattle off a couple of names for you that didn't make the squad. Obviously, as we said, we understand that, it's such a hard squad to pick. It's a tough job, but there's some guys that I'm not necessarily saying should be in there at the expense of others, but potentially were a bit surprised. So Tom Bletcherden, not in the squad.
South Freo, yes.
Luke Foley, not in the squad.
Yeah, big surprise.
Lee Coleman, not in the squad, leading goal kicker.
Yeah, that was a big surprise. I thought, Lee Coleman's input up forward was going to be incredibly valuable, so he's a bit unlucky.
No Connor West, injured, I believe, but still surprised not seeing the squad. Although Connor, I think, is very much someone who's content with having played at the top level and might have said, give an opportunity to someone else if asked. Nathan Wilson, not in the squad.
Nathan Wilson, yes.
But apart from that, I think, it's probably our best squad. Martin Frederick, could he have been added in there?
Mungaroo Frederick for Claremont, I reckon he could have been, a big addition for the Tigers. I feel
like with the losses that WA have had, it's been that leg speed, that ability to break open the game, which Frederick would add. But nonetheless, very strong squad. Plenty of speed all around as well.
No doubt about it. That's WA squad. Folks, let us know who you think should make the final team for Western Australia. Let us know in the comments if you're watching on YouTube, or you can let us know on our socials, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. We highly appreciate your opinion. Now, let's go over to the state of the check side. South Australia, terrific squad they have brought in for this game. Of course, that'll be trimmed down later in the week as well. Joseph Sinor already announced as captain, of course, having a great season over at Woodville West Torrens. Norwood bringing 5 players in, the former premiers. The current premiers, Glenelg, also bringing 5 players in, and also they have got some good leg speed, this South Australian squad, especially when you're talking about the likes of, you talk about Will Cumblis, Casey Voss, a former Foss Williams medalist, of course, back in 2022, and has had a good reputation of playing in some of those big games, including state games, particularly here in Perth.
Yeah, absolutely, and they're so experienced, the sample side as well. Casey Voss, he will need to get a lot of attention from a WA point of view in terms of stopping them, but yeah, the depth, you mentioned Harrison Wigg, your Lions, Sinor, the captain as well. They're blooding youth, but they're still guys who have tasted state football before, and they'll be looking to pass on to that next generation.
Now, Will Snelling's averaging around about 7-8 tackles a game. Will Snelling, he was the one that I thought was unlucky to miss out.
Obviously he has experience with Essendon at the AFL level, Port Adelaide, I believe, as well. So, he's tough to miss out, especially with those stats. Pressure at a place like Optus Stadium is welcome. So, it's a bit surprising, but as we've said on both sides, there's always going to be guys who miss out. But that makes it healthy because it's so competitive to spots, and you want to do everything in your power to get there. So just making the squad, even if you don't make the final team, is a magnificent achievement.
It's a huge
in itself.
achievement, no doubt about it. It's a massive achievement for those players that make the final squad. One representative from West Adelaide who I'm keen to see in that final team is Kobe Ryan. 81% disposal efficiency and is very prolific by hand as well. So he's looking really, really good. Just under 10 handballs a game, but also just under 15 kicks a game he's averaging as well. So he's good at both ways of disposal, by hand and by foot, and very efficient as well. So that could be a key for South Australia if Kobe Ryan is selected.
That balance is key between hand and foot. 81%, that's high. That is very high in the modern game. So yeah, he'll be dangerous to look out for.
He's played all 6 games for West Adelaide. They're just outside the 5 by a game and a half over in the Sandful. And the majority of them, have been from that final 5 side that have been the final 5 sides at the moment in those positions in the ladder. Norwood, Woodville, Glenelg Sturt. Of course, Glenelg Sturt, the grand finalists. So Glenelg Sturt heavily represented, along with Norwood, who are unbeaten 6 from 6. Central District, I thought a couple of players a bit unlucky to miss out from Central District. Of course, Aidan Grace, Bryn Little and Jez McClellan from the Central District side being represented in that South Australian squad as well. So a good balance of youth and experience. But having said that, 9 new faces in that SA squad. Of course, Harry Boyd, definitely the biggest loss for the South Australian squad. Of course, a premiership ruckman over at Norwood. He got injured. That's a massive heartbreaker for the South Australian selectors.
Yeah, it is. It is. He'll be sorely missed. But it's crazy, the reflection of the top teams at the top end of the ladder representing in players, picked. It is a reflection of how well those teams are going, and I guess the systems and the structures, which will hopefully, for their sake, transfer on Sunday on the field.
And their record as well in recent times against WA has been very, very good, including those close games.
Do you think that counts for something on Sunday?
It does. I think it certainly does, especially with, the close games that they've had. I mean, we go back to 2021 when South Australia won by 7 points, and then when South Australia won, and then 2022 when South Australia won again by 4 points.
On their home deck,
yeah. No doubt about that. I think 2019, I should say, when South Australia won by 7 points. And, of course, 2021, South Australia gave WA a bit of a thrashing in Adelaide, I should say, so just getting the records mixed up. But and then, of course, South Australia winning by 4 points in 2022. So, South Australia, they tend to, find that extra ounce to get the job done against Western Australia. But, with West Australia's squad, in contrast to South Australia, I think what Western Australia have done is evened it out a little bit more. Obviously, 2 teams missing, not represented in the South Australian squad. So balance is the key. West Australia may have a little bit more of it, but, we only know the full extent of that until when the final team gets named over the weekend. And, of course, the players get out on the field on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, and I'll put you on the spot a little bit here. Medalists from both sides, if you have to pick one. So we have the Simpson medal from a WA point of view, which Angus Schumacher won last year.
Yes.
And we have the Foss Williams medal from a South Australia point of view.
Well, I'll tell you that in just a moment, and I'll ask for your tips as
Stay
well.
tuned.
That is, of course, the key players for both sides. Who do you think should be featured in the final team for Western Australia and South Australia? Let us know on our socials, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And also, you can check it out on YouTube as well. You can let us know in the comments below, and also on TikTok as well. That's right. Around the Waffle is live on TikTok. You can check it out. Search Around the Waffle on TikTok for some marvellous content. Introducing the WAFL merch shop, your ultimate destination for all things WAFL. From jerseys to scarves to caps, show your support for the WAFL in style. Grab exclusive merchandise now and gear up to cheer louder than ever before. Visit shop.wafl.com.au today and let your passion shine. Now, we've mentioned Western Australia's key players early on, and we talked about South Australia as well here on Around the Waffle. Now it's time to get the coach's perspective from the state of the Czech side. Of course, he's the current coach of the Norwood Football Club, the 2022 premiers, who are rolling along in the Sandford competition with 6 straight wins. Their coach, Jade Rawlings, is good enough to join us here on Around the Waffle. Jade, welcome to the show, mate, and congratulations on another great opportunity to coach the South Australian team.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. It is a real privilege to be in this position. Really enjoyable. It's been something I've been part of for the last 3 years, 2 as a coach and 1 as an assistant. And I think the Western Australia and South Australia have established a really genuine rivalry and good respect amongst each state's competitions. And the opportunity to travel and play you guys at Optus Stadium is certainly something that's not lost on our guys, and they're very much excited by it.
What's the experience like playing over there at Optus Stadium? Obviously, it's going to be a big occasion at a big ground on the big stage. I imagine the boys are going to be absolutely blown away by the experience.
I think it's part of the enticing opportunity to be a state player is that where you get to play and who you get to play, and to travel to represent your state and to play at AFL standard ground and prior to an AFL game is a lot of layers to that, which appealing to the modern player, and it's a really good recognition to be in a state team. And then the perks of being able to play in Optus and travel is another layer to it. So we don't have any challenges in trying to get our players to want to play. Every now and then you get the odd situation, either through health or study or family that bobs up that might preclude a player from playing. But my experience at 95% of the time, players have been really willing to be part of the program.
And in terms of selection, you got guys like Casey Voss, who's been a brilliant state player in the past, but what's been the selection process like? A lot of blooding of youth in this team for the first time.
Form, fitness and character. They're the three things we set out to do when I first started being part of this program with a new selection group. We've got a South Australian legend in Timmy Ginniver, who's our chairman of selectors, Matty Doldig and Sean Tui, who are South Australian SANFL administrators, and then James Gallagher used to be St Kilda's list manager, and amongst Darren Reeves and Jacob Surgeon, who are coaches in the comp. We're pretty much the selection panel and been pretty wedded to those three layers as to what banner each player comes under. And we play Victoria in round 2 or after round 1 this year, and there's probably going to be a few different players playing based upon fitness, but also a couple on form, recognising form over the last 5 weeks within our competition. So it's critical that we recognise that and also acknowledge the players who are playing at the level who might come up just short, but just know they're on the radar. So I've been really, really proud of the SANFL for being able to be good communicators to our players as to where they sit.
Let's go back to that game against Victoria. Of course, you got the Chocolates there by 13 points in that state game at Glenelg during the gather round weekend. Must be a big spring in confidence having played a prize state game, knowing now that you're going to go into a second one, a little bit match hardened, so to speak.
I think the benefit of it is the familiarity of players towards each other. You only get them for a week. We decide that a week is the appropriate amount of time to really down tools from the clubland and really invest into the state program. And there's going to be probably 12 to 13 players from that Victorian game that will come through and play against WA. So that's a good whack of guys who are familiar with what the expectations are and how we go about the week, and to really engage and initiate our newer players who come into it. So it's handy to have played once this year, and to have got the result against Victoria was good because they were pretty stacked. And we were really satisfied with the performance earlier in the year.
Your record over WA speaks for itself in the last handful of years. Why do you think that's been in the last sort of handful of years from your guys' end? What have you guys done well to keep winning these games?
It's interesting. I think it'd be fair to say the times I've been involved, it's been within a goal or under 2 goals the result each time. So I don't think there's that much between the two states, which is great for both comps to engage in really good competition and games going right to the wire. So I think we've been able to do some things well where we've a pretty potent forward line and some guys who have jumped up and had good patches of form that have helped put a score on the board at critical times. But I remember a couple of years ago, Riley Knight and Nick Roker, who was playing for us in South Australia, and Matty Nunn and Campbell Coombe, we performed really well in the midfield. So we were games that early this year against Victoria, we had a really strong back line. So it's varied from time to time that I've been involved as to where we've been able to be strong. But the beauty of the games against Western Australia, they've been neck and neck, and the momentum swung pretty strongly both ways. And we've been fortunate enough to come out on top, but I wouldn't have said that it was anything other than just good contest, and we were able to just be ahead on the scoreline at the right time.
Just before we let you go, a couple of players that myself and Ethan reckon really stand out in the squad. Obviously Casey Voss won the Foss Williams medal, of course, a couple of years ago. Best player on the ground for South Australia. He was absolutely impressive. Of course, playing for Sturt in the Sandful, having another great season there. Joseph Sinall, the captain, obviously from Woodville West Torrens. Also Corey Lyons from the reigning premiers in Glenelg. Tom Donnelly from the side that you coach in the Sandful in Norwood. And Harrison Wigg in North Adelaide, they've been quite impressive this season, and I reckon it could be a chance for the final team. Have you seen their season from a club point of view, and what could their contributions be like if they're selected in the final team?
Yeah, well, Voss has been a really good player in this comp for a long time and plays well for South Australia, so he's got a lot of skin in the game. I've known Casey since he was 10 years of age. I worked at Brisbane with his dad for a few years, and I've known him for a long time. And he's a quiet, humble young man, but he's a good performer. Harrison Wigg's a good player. He just knocks up getting kicks in this comp. He just knows his way around a footy ground really well. He's a good man. He doesn't get too flustered by things, so he deals with the moment really well. Donnelly's a beauty. He's been over here for 3 years from Tassie now and become one of the really strong defenders in the comp, and he's got some good form line of who he's played on this year. So it'll be his first state game for us. And Corey Lyons, good man. He had some time at Brisbane Lions. Probably his first year at Glenelg, he was probably just still working his way into the comp, but the second year he really thrived. I think he was best and fairest in the premiership year. So, yeah, he's been a really strong contributor to the competition. So, yeah, those amongst a lot of other guys. We've got some players who are really reputable in our comp, as you guys will have, that you know them well, but we're probably not as familiar to each other. And that's the beauty as well, a bit of the unknown, and trying to, on the run, be aware of who's influencing the game from both sides is always a challenge as a coach.
Adds to the intrigue of what's going to be an exciting contest on Sunday afternoon at Optus Stadium. Jade, we really appreciate your time. Gratefully appreciated here on Around the Waffle. Good luck to the South Australian squad. Should be an exciting contest on Sunday.
No, my pleasure. Thanks for getting us involved in your show, fellas.
That was Jade Rawlings, of course, the current coach of Norwood and also the coach of the South Australian team as well. Good on him, and all the best to the South Australian team on Sunday afternoon. That squad, plenty of depth and, of course, a lot of youth in that side as well, as Jade mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely. And, he's got a bundle of experience himself playing a lot of games at North Melbourne. And, yes, a very stacked side. And good point that he said that all the games have been 2 goals and under because, could have gone WA's way. Hasn't been. But from our point of view, we're looking to turn that around. But, yeah, I remember a couple of years ago, Steph Jara had a chance to kick a winning goal at Optus, which didn't come about. And interesting, Nick Roker will be coming up if he's selected against his old state.
How about that?
They'll have some insight on him. So, yeah, and even from our end, Mitch Croden's obviously at Sandford Park. So there's a bit of correlating between the two states.
That just adds to it. It adds to the rivalry as well. Players crossing from one side of the border to another. Nick Roker in particular this season, having a great year with Swan Districts. But of course, South Australia, they are ready to go and looking to retain the Hayden Bunton Cup for another year. Okay, that almost does it for today's edition of Around the Waffle, the special state game edition. But we are going to go to the tips. Ethan, who wins?
Backing in WA for the first time in 4 or 5 years. So I'm backing them to turn it around in front of hopefully a big crowd at Optus Stadium and bring home that Hayden Bunton Cup finally.
I'm going to back WA as well, but it'll only be a goal. I reckon it'll be another close game as well. What about the medalists? You asked me earlier. We're going to tell the fans now. I'll go to you first, Ethan. The Simpson medalist for WA and the Foss Williams medalist for South Australia.
Simpson medalist, I'm going to back in Greg Clark. I think big body, in and under, hopefully hit the scoreboard as well. So I think the judges will be hard to miss him out there. And from a Foss Williams point of view, I think Casey Voss might take home his second medal.
Casey Voss, second straight Foss Williams medal in WA games. How about that? That's a big call. I like it. Simpson medalist for me, tough one to pick, but if he gets selected, I'm going to say Isaiah Winder. I'm going to say Winder for the Simpson medal from South Fremantle. Yeah, rock solid form he's been on over the last month and a half. And for South Australia, I'm actually going to go Kobe Ryan from West Adelaide. So he could be a real surprise packet for the judges if he gets selected in the final team. His electricity, his efficiency in midfield is going to be such a key as well. So for me, it'll be Simpson medalist, Foss Williams medalist rather, Kobe Ryan from West Adelaide, and the Simpson medalist is going to be Isaiah Winder. Fans, get yourself ready for a big one. Sunday afternoon, it's going to be an absolute belter. We're going to review the game on Tuesday and have representatives from both West Australia and South Australia jumping on for a chat. Make sure you stay tuned to find out who they are for another great edition of Around the Waffle. Ethan, great job from you as always. Enjoy the game on Sunday.
Will do. Everyone get down there to Optus Stadium if you can. Obviously, it only happens once a year. If you can't, it'll be on afl.com.au. So get around it. Keep state footy alive. And yeah, go those WA boys.
No doubt about it. It's going to be a big occasion. Good luck to WA and South Australia. We look forward to your company on Tuesday to review the big encounter. We'll see you then.